Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to have you present in this webinar regarding email deliverability. Thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to be here. And I'm Johan van der Hende from IO. I'm Digital Strategist Marketing Automation. And I'm very pleased to have a special guest today, Jan Schapmans. Jan, who are you and what are you doing here?
Thank you. I'm also very glad to be here. And let's talk a little bit about deliverability. I'm Jan Schapmans from Saligent. I'm the director of the deliverability team. That's a team consisting out of a couple of deliverability experts. Those are the persons who tweak the systems behind the scenes. And we also have a couple of deliverability consultants who are helping our clients with their deliverability on the Saligent marketing platform.
Okay, let's start with the most important question. Jan, how did you get into email deliverability? Where did it start? What's the past for you?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Of course, I didn't came out of school and rolled into deliverability. I was a developer at a company, a small company in Hasselt, building websites. But we had a couple of clients, small databases, small contact lists. But there was one client, Palm Breweries, you know, the famous beer.
Yes.
They had a list of a couple of 10,000 of users.
Which was a lot at that time.
At that time, that was huge, but they weren't doing anything with it. It was just sitting there, and they wanted to use that for marketing purposes. So instead of us advising on an ESP, we couldn't find one. So we decided with our website building company to build our own ESP. So I was involved from the first email we sent up until the millions a day as the lead developer of that platform. And back at that days, it was about delivery, getting the emails delivered in the mailbox. Yeah. And there was an occasional spam filter issue, but mostly related to content. And as you can see on this visual, on the slides, there was a case where we couldn't find what was wrong in the content. There was, after some investigation, we noticed that, I don't know if you all see the slides or the visual.
It's not that one.
No, it's the one with the first one.
Oh. Okay, we seem to have a small
technical issue.
But explain what
yeah, there was a content, there was a string in there saying, hey, if you want to get your free gift, go to go via gratis.be, and the Viagra, of course, was blocking and was triggering all the spam filters.
And
really
nobody
blocking.
saw that, of course.
No, it took us some time to really investigate.
But you find it.
Yeah, to find it, indeed.
But let's start with the most important question. What is email deliverability? What are we talking about? What are we going to talk about?
Yes, indeed. You heard me mention delivery and deliverability as well. Those are two separate things. Delivery is about getting the email delivered to the mailbox of the user. That means once it is accepted at the receiving server, it's delivered. We think it is delivered, but it doesn't have to mean it's visible for the end user, because the receiving server, the ISP, can decide to remove the email or drop it in the spam folder. So visibility to your end user is limited.
Yeah, and of course, mail is still a prime channel in marketing and marketing automation. So we must make sure that those mails reach the inbox, because that's the name of the game.
And of course, not into the spam folder. And where does the name actually come from? Because I guess you did some research.
Yeah, and I did. I visited some obscure website called Wikipedia. Perhaps you heard of it. And I found there that there was a guy, an American, of course, back in '78. His name was Gary Twerk. Don't know how you pronounce it, but he was working for an ancient computer company, which was called DEC Computers. And at that time, the internet was not yet there. It was the predecessor of that. It was called ARPANET. And he sent out a mail to all the users of ARPANET, all 393 of them, to sell DEC computers. And unfortunately for us, it worked. And he sold about $14 million of equipment. And so we should not be happy about Gary because he started it. And if we look at the term spam, that originates from a Monty Python sketch. You know, Monty Python, of course, they had a sketch regarding people who go to a restaurant after the war, and there was some rationing, and all you could get in that restaurant was spam. And so we have the spam song. So the song goes on for a bit. I think we all know the lyrics by now, by heart. But let's go deeper into spam. Yeah, emails got lost sometimes. Why?
Yeah, yes, and it's not clear for everybody, but you have to understand that a lot of emails are not even delivered into the spam folder, into the inbox. They got deleted. They claim that over 90% of the email traffic is really dropped when it is received.
That's a lot.
Yeah, definitely on those busy days like Cyber Weeks, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We've heard from a big French provider that told us that over 99% of the traffic they accept just get trashed.
Yeah, I even heard that it's all a numbers game, of course. A spammer needs to send out 12,000 emails to get one response. So that's why they send out so many emails. Now, we know that spammers exist. They must be blocked, but sometimes valid emails are put into spam folders or even don't arrive. What's happening there?
Yes, and for sure, the mailbox providers don't want to annoy their users. They are there to protect the users. So it's in their interest to block the clear, obvious spam and fishy emails and viruses. And on the other hand, make sure that the good emails deliver in the inbox. But you can understand if they have to drop 90, 95, 90% of all the traffic, the remainder, there's a gray area. And that's where the issues happen, of course. Misclassification, it dropped in the spam folder, or some valid spam ends up in the inbox.
Once again, the numbers game, of course.
Yes.
There is a mention about spam traps, the term spam traps. What is that?
Yeah, the answer is already in the name. It's a trap to catch spammers. Back in the days, Hotmail, you know, Hotmail.com, one of the first big free email box webmail providers.
We'll have some email address somewhere there.
A lot of users do. But they were first in the market. So everybody was really registering a Hotmail.com address and start using it. But then Gmail came around, Yahoo came around, all the local ISPs. If you had get internet connection at your home, I remember the modem dialing in many years ago, you get a free email address. So everybody was moving away from their Hotmail address. And Hotmail was sitting there with millions of mailboxes where senders were still sending, but the users were not checking that mailbox. They were not engaging, definitely not engaging, not clicking, not even opening their mailbox anymore. And Microsoft said something like, instead of just removing that mailbox, let's try to look at what kind of senders are still sending to those traps, what they call recycled spam traps, and give them somewhat a reputation linked to their bad behavior.
So those are historical, not more used.
Yeah, those are recycled.
Are there also mailboxes created specifically for trapping spam?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, what I'm talking about was those recycled spam traps. You also have pristine spam traps. Those are the very dangerous ones. Yes, indeed. And if you hit those, there's a big chance you have reputation issues. Because those email addresses are especially generated to catch spammers. They are never subscribed. They have never given consent with GDPR.
Of course.
So it's very dangerous to hit those.
Okay.
And as you can see on the visual now, this is the third-party software we use to monitor the delivery of spam traps on our
Okay.
senders on our network. And we are not zooming in on the actual numbers, but we try to spot trends. So if we see a spike in them hitting spam traps or a lot of pristine traps, we try to act on it, reach out
Okay.
to our sender of the Selligent Marketing Cloud platform and work with them to improve their quality.
Okay. What areas do we have to cover for an optimal email deliverability strategy?
In my opinion, it's basic housekeeping that all our senders should cover.
And also, of course, a good communication strategy on top of that.
That's for sure.
So let's talk about that basic housekeeping. Many people think still today that email deliverability is all about technical issues, pure technical issues. That has changed over the years, I think.
Yes, but at first it was about delivery, the IP configuration, the domain configuration, the sending limits, a lot of technical stuff. But that has evolved. I explained the spam trap situation, about the recycle traps and the traps. So after that first technical hurdle that the senders need to challenge, they were faced with their practices, their bad practices being monitored. Are you hitting spam traps? Are you do you keep sending to hard bounces, or do you do proper list hygiene, the bounce quality?
And do you send to via gratis.de,
yes,
for example?
Content filtering is still around, but that has been for many years. But indeed, so at first, the receivers were looking at the bad practices, but after a while, they have more resources. Think about Gmail with their big data centers. They were also looking at good practices, best practices, like are senders sending to users that really engage with the brands? Are they opening? Are they clicking? Are they replying?
Are they subscribed?
Are they subscribed? Did they give consent in everything? So there was a move from the technical to the bad practices, and now best practices, although we now call it the normal practices.
Yeah. Okay. So let's continue with the basic housekeeping. It seems technical to me, isn't it?
For a part, it is. At first, we have to do a couple of technical steps and two good, or should we say, normal behavior steps.
Let's start with the technical ones.
Yeah. When we onboard a new sender, first we do is, of course, we go into contact with the client. We explain them all the best practices, but then one of the first thing we also do is discuss about their sending domain, their infrastructure.
There are some acronyms there.
Yes, of course, because if we send up that sending domain, we need to make sure their authentication of that domain is fully aligned, is fully in line with the best practices and technical challenges that they need to.
The SPF, DKIM, and there's another one, I think.
DMARC ties them a little bit together, but SPF is about allowing the IPs sent in your domain. So it's by the receivers can check if they receive an email from a specific sending domain. Is this IP allowed to use it? That's normally for most of the senders, that's fine. We even see a lot of spam traffic where that's all taken care of. DKIM is about the content of the email.
Okay.
So the entire content.
Via gratis. No?
Yes, a little bit, but it's more about is the content valid? We sign it. So the senders sign everything what's in the email, including the headers, the sending domain, and they put the signature in the headers of the email. So the receiver can check, is the content valid? Is there been tampered with on reception? Has the email been forwarded? Or those kind of things.
I think we have a visual.
Yeah, in the visual, the viewers can see a little bit the line of the timing, how an email is sent, how it has been received by the receiving, the ISP, and how SPF, DMARC, DKIM comes into play.
So that's the start. We said 2 technical issues. What's the second one?
The second one is actually, making sure that you have a good IP and also later domain reputation. But about the IP reputation, it's very important for us, Selligent being, which were in charge of our senders on the Selligent Marketing Cloud platform, to do a proper warm-up.
That's what I was going to say. When we have a new Selligent Marketing Cloud customer, the first thing you say, help the customer with warm-up.
Yes. The idea is that you have to gain trust with the big brands like Gmail and Hotmail and all the receivers actually. So you can't send 1 million emails the next day. Then red flags go up.
Of course.
But it's also about mailing subscribers that have given consent. That's a little bit harder to prove for the receivers, but they can see that in the way their users interact with the emails and opens.
I think we go more in detail on that later on. Huh?
Yeah, indeed, and of course, never buy lists. That's a no-go.
Sometimes I have customers who say, we have bought a list, and I always say, no, don't do that. That's correct. You never buy lists.
No, that's a really no-go, because even if they are valid users and they might not bounce, they are suddenly receiving emails that they don't expect. So the engagement is very low. There might be a lot of bounces, a lot of complaints generated by that practice. So no.
Sometimes what happens is you go to a certain website, media and stuff, companies like that, and it says, I agree to be contacted by partners of, and those are the ones that sell their lists.
Yes.
And then you get a mail from a company that you don't expect to get a mail from, and then you unsubscribe.
And legally, you have given consent, but still it's not
it's fishy.
Yeah, it's
really fishy.
True.
And sunsetting, what's that?
Sunsetting is about setting the sun slowly for your users.
So going to sleep.
And that doesn't mean that you have to really at some point say, now we stop sending to that user, he's not engaging anymore, but it means changing your practices after a while. For instance, if a user after 12, 16 emails is not opening the email, maybe you should try to change the voice of the subject, make it more personal, put a discount in there, and an extra thing to win him back.
Okay, a sending domain, why is it so important, and why do we need a dedicated one as a company sending out emails?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we talked a little bit about IP reputation. This is how it all started many years ago, but the IP is not the identity of the sender, and the domain is.
Okay.
You can think about big brands like Coca-Cola who own the domain 25, 30 years maybe. There is a lot of reputation linked to that domain, while IPs can be switched.
So we see a link from IP reputation to domain reputation, correct?
Yes, definitely. Mainly the big providers have the resources to keep track of all these domains and all these reputation metrics. But yeah, like I said, IPs you can switch easily. If you switch from ESP, you get new IPs. Small senders can't survive on a dedicated IP, so they are more likely to work on shared IPs.
Yes.
And per definition, shared IPs, you have multiple IPs on it, multiple domains, sending domains on it.
A spammer can be on the same domain.
Can on the same domain.
Same IP. Sorry.
Same IPs. So that means that they are trying to put the identity on the domain, and Gmail is doing that already for years. Hotmail is claiming that in the backend they already do that, and a lot of receivers do.
Okay, I think also we have a visual here.
Yes, indeed, because this is what I want to show you is about that domain reputation. There is a saying that goes that it takes months, weeks to build up a reputation. It can be ruined in seconds, and then it takes months to recover. And maybe that is a little bit too harsh, but if you see the visual, you can really see the domain reputation drop from high to bad in a couple of days. And it took us a month with really hard work with the client to get them back up to that high domain reputation level.
That's painful, I think.
Yes, definitely.
During that period that your mails do not arrive.
Yes.
There is also a shift, if I'm not mistaken, from tracking opens to tracking clicks. Is that correct?
Yeah, in terms of domain reputation and in terms of deliverability, yes.
Why?
In the deliverability community, for years, there's already a discussion, what does an open mean? Because you have a lot of systems opening the emails in the backend without being the actual user. You can imagine
I think ISP, we will talk later about that, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Yes, but you can imagine that spam filters are opening the email to check what's the content. And it
so
downloads
the sending company thinks, hey, I have a valid customer here.
True, indeed. So that's why they say, what is an open worth and what will it be worth in the next 2 to 5 years? But clicks are real. Clicks are really key signals of interest of that user. And that's why there's a shift a little bit in reputation calculation to clicks.
And we still have some other steps, I think, to talk about.
Yes, for sure. I think we have a lot of other steps, and I can talk for a long time about deliverability.
I only have an hour and a half, so hold your horses, Jan.
But about some other steps, indeed, about the unsubscribe process. Make sure that in every communication you send, we even advise on transactional email to put an unsubscribe link in there. It's required in marketing emails, but also in transactional, I would do it. And that being said, we prefer like a preference page.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that later on. It's also important to have a good constructed email, or preferably email template. Of course, today it has to be mobile friendly. Yes, majority. Do you know how many people open on mobile? Do you have an idea about that?
I think about 70 or 80%.
Yeah, okay, it's already that much. So of course it needs to be mobile friendly. There has to be a good link between text and emails, images, sorry. No syntax errors, of course, no formatting errors. Seems logical. Plain text version, still important?
Yes, definitely is.
Even if it's not used anymore. And always use your business email address, I think. Never send out from personal address. Is important.
Yeah, indeed.
But if we go further into the email or the email template, other things we have to think about?
Yeah, there are a lot of things. Gmail is claiming that they use like over 1,000 metrics to determine your reputation, and some of them are content related, like avoid using spam words, especially repeating. 10 years ago, if you would use like the free word in your subject, you were immediately blocked.
Not anymore then.
Not anymore, less. But if you repeat it in your subject and in your pre-header and in all the content, you are more likely to get flagged as spam. So that's a little bit of shift in the content filtering. Other things like no URL shorteners. So, yeah, everybody knows that bit.ly use when you have a long link and you want to make it shorter, because that is hiding stuff. And the receivers don't like signals about hiding something, because that's spammy behavior. And that's also why no hidden text.
No hidden text, no.
Sometimes you have templates where they're still part of an HTML hidden because it's in the creation process. They just put it in comment or something like that. That's dangerous.
That is
because
dangerous.
You try to hide
and of
something.
course also putting a white text on a white background.
Don't do that. That's all about avoid hiding stuff. Be open, be transparent. That's why also one of the things we from Selligent try to align is use as little different domains as possible in your email domain. So we align all the tracking links, the opened link, the sending domain, because you make it more easy for the receiver to check on reputation of all the links, because you only have 1 or 2 different domains.
Yes.
Don't mix all domains in the email. Be as transparent as possible. And that being said, do not track suspicious links or visible links. What I mean is, sometimes we see a lot of brands do that. They put in the footer their domain of their website. But if it then goes to the click tracking process, that visible domain is still their website, but the click tracking domain can be another domain. And that's a little bit of a fishy thing, of course, because the user thinks he's going to that website, but in fact, he's first going to that click script. And that's a dangerous.
So even if it would be valid, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Okay. Unsubscribes, how do we handle those?
There are 2 different processes in the unsubscribe process.
The unsubscribe link, I guess?
Yes, that's the more obvious one, of course. And like I said, in every email, you should have a clear unsubscribe link. It's fine to put it in the footer, but the more easy you make it for a user to find it, so let's put it in the header, the more they will use it instead of clicking on this is spam. We prefer, like I said, a preference page.
Fully agree.
But make sure, even if you have a preference page, it should be easy for the user to subscribe for all. Not that he has to, sometimes you have that 10, 20 checkboxes where you have to uncheck everything. Don't do that. Make it as easy as possible. If the user wants to leave, let him
also
part.
Something which annoys me to hell is you click on the unsubscribe and then you come into a form who says, enter your email address.
Yes, indeed.
It's legal, but it's not good behavior, I think.
Yeah. But that's that one, the unsubscribe process I'm talking about.
Yes.
But you also have another one that's called the list and subscribe one. That's a hidden header that a lot of ESPs, a lot of senders send in the headers of the email, and the receiving parties, so like Gmail and Hotmail, they look at this header and they put an unsubscribe link on top of the email. So at a structured place for every sender, it's the same place. That makes it more structured, more obvious for the user how to unsubscribe, and they don't have to click on this is spam, because you don't want that.
Okay, but how does it work if you click on the unsubscribe link from the ESP or the ISP? Do you get information back as a sending company that they clicked on the unsubscribe?
Yes. That's linked to us unsubscribe process. Most ESPs support this, and of course, Sergeant Marketing Cloud as well. Out of the box, we handle those unsubscribe requests as well, and we put those users on an opt-out field.
And I think about the preference page, all the things that we frequently do for our customers, of course, to have a granular opt-in, opt-out, but we also frequently add the possibility to pause sending for a certain time. I'm on a holiday, give me the option not receiving mails for 1 month instead of losing that customer completely. And the basic idea is don't upset your customers so that they don't say this is spam. Give them a clear way out.
Yes, indeed, because they claim that one click on this is spam is the same negative reputation score as 50 unsubscribes. So you really have to avoid this is spam.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying put the unsubscribe on top. Make sure you have the list and subscribe in place. To be honest, we even suspect Gmail to see the unsubscribe process as a positive signal, because if they spot a user clicking on unsubscribe and the next day he really doesn't get emails anymore, there is proof he is unsubscribed, Gmail sees that's a valid sender.
Which is logical, giving GDPR and stuff that
indeed.
Once again, best practice / normal practice, as we said before.
Yes, of course.
Now, before we said you still need a text version. Why? Why do we need that?
That's historical, actually. For many years, maybe the discussion has been going on for 10 years now. Do we need a text version? All devices have a very sexy interface and are rendering the emails correctly.
They don't have Blackberries anymore.
Yeah, indeed. And at first, the Google Watch was also the one reason you should send a text version 10 years ago was the Google Watch. It was rendering that text and it was reading it. But now they claim it's still valid for who knows what device. But the very important thing is if you implement the text version, a lot of ESPs have an interface where they can very easily transfer or convert their HTML to a text version. But make sure
Intelligent Marketing Cloud also has that
but most of course do it out of the box. But you can understand, align your HTML version with the text version.
Otherwise, you once again give hidden information.
That's the reason why. True.
So let's talk about the communication strategy. We have the basics. Yeah, right. We know what to do. Technical, nice template, preference page, unsubscribe, check. What's next?
This is for me, one of the important things that a sender can do is making sure that the quality of their user list is spotless. Because the user list is, of course, the basis of a sender's audience. That's where it all starts. So they have to make sure the quality is high. And how do they do that? Is, of course, making sure that the acquisition process, the subscription forms, everything, the way that the users are coming into that list is secured. It's fine. It's validated. They have given consent, all the users. So that means everything that's coming in is proved. Then make sure when you're sending that bounce management is up to speed. By default, in most ESPs and also in Sales and Marketing Cloud, it is done by default. We have a customizable bounce management system. That's what we call email quality. But that's just doing proper list hygiene. If you send to a hard bounce where you get a clear message back, this user does not exist,
don't send again.
Don't send again. It makes sense if you're talking it like this. And also about the subscription process, I really want to stress out the visual you're seeing now is that once we had a client, when I arrived in the morning, we noticed a lot of hard bounces during the night. And we're like, this is not normal for this sender because all the green you see is good. And the blue one, I think, is the bad one. So it really stand out. There is something wrong. So we reached out to the client and they investigated and quickly came back with us saying, yes, we had an attack on one of our forms. It was not protected by a CAPTCHA. There was no protection mechanism. And they called it a script kiddie, found their subscription form, and they were abused over the night. And luckily, Gmail spotted it as a mistake, and they didn't suffer any domain reputation.
Could have been worse.
It could have been
a
worse,
lot worse.
indeed.
Yeah.
So
that's why you have so much work to do,
yes.
solving all those things for
Yes.
Intelligent Marketing Cloud. Now, of course, if we're talking about the contact list, and then we go to my expertise, you're talking about email addresses and subscribes, opt-in, opt-outs. It's of course very important to have a very nice and very good data model so that you can target your customers correctly and send them the information, the content that they are interested in. For example, I am interested in gadgets and I dislike sports, so send me something about a new iPhone, but don't send me an article about a footballer. So make sure that everything is right. And so you have certain types of data that you must make sure on top of email address, subscribe, opt-ins, etc., that needs to be good to have a good strategy. And we look at attribute data. Who are you? Where do you live? We have geographical data, also where do you live, but also in what neighborhood. Are you living in the suburbs instead of in the city? That can be geographical data.
Mm-hmm.
Your behavior, what did you purchase? What did you visit? I think Saligent site tracks visits.
Yes, of course.
Also, where are you location-based? So your closest shop. All those things are important. You have aggregated data, RFM calculation, recency,
Mm-hmm.
frequency, monetary. And why not external data? What's the weather? So if you sell clothes, that you can say today it's raining, buy a new raincoat. That's all stuff that's important in personalization. People don't think that's linked to deliverability, but it is, because if you send the right contact based on the information that you have, people are not going to unsubscribe or even target you as spam. But we come we come back to that later. We talked about sunsetting. There is also something called smart sunsetting, not?
Yes, indeed. So I explained a little bit what do I mean with sunsetting, setting the sun slowly for users, changing your practices, changing your frequency, changing the way you personalize your emails, try to win those users back. But in the end, if they don't respond, if they don't engage with your brand, stop sending to those users by that channel, by email. But we see that every provider.
I think we have a visual here as well, I think, but go on.
Yeah, that's indeed the sunsetting practice. I will explain in a minute. But we see in smart sunsetting that every provider has different set of rules when they decide, when they calculate your reputation. Like Gmail, for example, will be more looking at positive signals about engagement, while Hotmail or Microsoft in general will be more looking at bad practices. So that means that maybe for Gmail, you can only start sunsetting after 6 months non-engagement by users, while at Hotmail, it's best already to start at 3-4 months to really have a cutoff at 6 months. While by Gmail, you can stretch it longer. but it all depends on your metrics for those providers.
So that's why you're an expert, because you know that 6 months for Gmail and 3 months for Hotmail. I wouldn't know that. I know about sunsetting, I know about smart sunsetting, but I didn't know that. Thank God, Jan,
Yes.
Jan, that we have you.
I think the users see this this visual now about our sunsetting case we had a couple of years ago, where I think it was a French retailer suffering from really low conversions, really low opens and click rates, and they were reaching out to us. So what we did was we discussed with the client to have a more granular approach. So we divided their users in different groups, like the real active users, less active, and the really disengaged users, and started to send more to the really engaged ones and less to the disengaged and the in-betweens. What happened was that we sent on average less per campaign, which makes sense because we were excluding those ones that don't engage. And the normal thing is that the open rate was going up. That makes sense because you're removing the ones that don't open. So your open rate was going up. But what's more interesting is that even your unique number of clicks is going up. So by sending less, you are reaching more users. And
Which
that
sounds counterintuitive, of course.
Yes, but that is all because of that reputation. You are landing more in the inbox. You are landing more in the promotions folder and not in the spam folder anymore. So by sending less, but to more engaged users, you gain reputation and you are more visible to your audience.
So basically, less is more.
Less is more.
Okay.
So Johan, we now move more into your area of expertise.
I think so, yes.
Can you tell us something about automated versus ad hoc campaigning?
Yeah, if we look at email marketing, the old way of doing marketing, not that's anything wrong with that, but what companies do or did is they say, we have a campaign. We are going to send today a campaign to people interested in this. So what you want to do is you have to decide what do you communicate, who is targeted, your target group, and then you send out the email. And that's that's ad hoc campaigning, where you have a certain cadence of mails you send out. If we look at marketing automation, and then it's the next step, Intelligent Marketing Cloud is of course marketing automation too. You get extra possibilities to communicate. You can send up customer journeys, automated customer journeys that do not send to target groups, but send to targets. And that instead of an audience of 3,000, 5,000, whatever, you have always an audience of one, which gives you the possibility to send the information at the time that it's appropriate. For example, you have a new customer start a welcome program. They know they can accept. It's logical that you send an email at that time, and your marketing department does not have to think about doing anything because it's automated. So we see a shift from the daily pursuits. I have to send out 2 emails. I see that frequently. If I step into a company, I go to a marketer and I ask him, what are you going to do today? And they say, I have to send out 2 emails to empowering the marketeers to look at the bigger picture. So how can I augment turnover? How can I augment revenue? And that's what the marketeers should do. So what we see is a shift to a mix of ad hoc campaigns and automated campaigns, so that you only do those ad hoc for specific newsletters, for example, will sometimes be automated, but it can also be ad hoc. There can be new product releases. You will do ad hoc campaigning, but you will do less ad hoc campaigns. And so you have a good mix between those two.
Yes. Yes, I really want to say what we see on our platform is that the average size of the campaigns are going down over the years. So that means that our senders are doing a better job in segmenting more specific for that campaign and setting up more automated journeys that send small batches or even one-to-one communication streams.
Yeah,
and that's a good evolution.
Yeah, and I think you can do that in several ways. You have the automated journeys one-to-one, audience of one. You also have the possibility is you send to several thousand people, but the content that they get is different. Or you have content that you want to send and ask the system, and I think Selligent can do both, ask the system who should receive that content. And then you are sure that people get the information that they like, the information that they need, and you will have less unsubscribes and dropouts.
Yes.
Something.
But what has all these practices to do with, we're here for talking about email deliverability. What that has to do with deliverability?
Yeah, of course. If you send me a mail about sports, the chances that I unsubscribe are big. Or even say this is spam, it doesn't interest me, and so I'm not anymore there anymore, because an unsubscribe, of course, is bad for email deliverability, but it's also a soul that you have lost where you can't do any marketing, and so the chances of selling to that customer or that prospect is not there anymore. Now, suppose we have a new product. Yeah, I have 500,000 email addresses. I have a state-of-the-art marketing automation tool that can send out millions of emails per hour. And I say, let's send it. What happens?
Yeah, you know, a lot of bounces, a lot of complaints and subscribes. And yes, at a short-term effect, you might generate some revenue.
You will send $14 million of deck computers.
Yes,
going
exactly the same.
Yeah,
you will, on short term, you probably get some revenue, some clicks, some conversion from that marketing campaign. But in the long term, it can damage your reputation because you are generating a higher complaint rate, the unsubscribes that are coming in. Users are maybe a little bit frustrated with the brand. They don't open anymore. They move it to the spam folder and stuff like that. So in the long term, it can damage your reputation.
The audience, don't do that.
And damage your revenue stream or your conversion.
So coming back to summarize, in ad hoc campaigns, you segment, you have data. Coming back, when I said the data model is important, if you need to segment, you need to know that somebody like me is interested in gadgets and not in sports. So you need to have that information. If that is the area that your product is or your service is in, you need to be relevant. The content needs to be there, and you need to know how often to do that. So you need a strategy. Now, with automated journeys, the marketeers are no longer involved in sending out the email. So you need a system that automatically will pick the right content and put it in the email. Of course, you can say, I have a welcome program and everybody gets the same welcome mail. Of course, nothing bad about that, but it's even stronger if you can refer to what their first purchase was. Do, for example, a product recommendation. People who bought this also bought this, or you bought a printer. Don't you need ink, for example? Those are all important things. And of course, don't do oversending. It's very important not to send too much. I subscribe, or rather my wife subscribed to a certain unknown Swedish furniture company, which we will not name, and she got 3 emails per day. No kidding. And I think something is wrong there. She unsubscribed very quickly. There is a risk of sending too many communications. So you need to have a very strict communication plan, and you don't want to interfere with your automated journeys. And that's a balancing act. How do you make sure that you don't do that? So you need a plan. You need to make sure that you don't send too many mails, but you have to segment appropriately. So if it's a new customer, I can't send out the email. So that's very hard. Or perhaps you have an advanced marketing automation tool, such as Selligent Marketing Platform, who does that automatically, correct?
Yes, indeed. We have one, one feature that's called cadence management, who can deal with that. So the marketeer is in charge and can configure the marketing pressure across all their marketing channels. So it's not even within email. It's opening up everything, even mobile and SMS can be in there as well.
But if I have 5 campaigns to send this week, and the one on Friday is the most important, isn't then the risk that the non-important one on Monday is sent, while the important one on Friday isn't? Doesn't that defeat a little bit of the purpose?
Yes, but you can configure a lot of priorities in that.
So you can say that the one on Friday is the
system.
most important one.
Yes,
okay, I
things
get
like
it.
that.
I get
things
it.
like that. Yeah.
And now let's get to the elephant, or rather the apple in the room. What are the new features that Apple launched? Because if you go to specialized websites, they all say Apple has new features in place that make it that much harder to follow customers, correct?
Yes, that's true. And a lot of senders in the audience can check their numbers, and they will see an increase in open rates starting end of September last year, because Apple then launched their Apple MPP, mail privacy protection thing. And that means that actually they are copying a little bit what Gmail is doing already for many years. Because normally when you open an email, the moment you open it, the images get downloaded from the server where they are hosted. And on that exact timing, the open is tracked. But what Apple on Apple Mail, the Apple Mail app is doing now is they are downloading the images in the background by a proxy server. So that means that as a sender or as an ESP, we provide the infrastructure to our senders. We can't know anymore which one is a real open or which one is a fake open, because that open, like I said, is opened by a proxy server and not the actual device. So that means we also don't know what device. It can be Apple Mail on Monterey version. It can be on iOS 15. And in the future, all devices on Apple will go there. That being said, it is called privacy protection. And although it's true that it hides some personal information, what device are you using, the time that you open your email and stuff like that. For me, it's also a little bit about marketing, because Apple from the start had always been the driver in bringing a more sexy interface and smooth transitions within screens. So if they can upfront download the images, rescale the images if needed, render the email already, it's simply there. So it's also as funny as our engineers within Selligent did some data crunching on what they're seeing on the Apple Opens, and based on the data, it looks like in the evening there were more false opens than during the day. And you would say, why is that? But if you think about it, if you're on the road and if you're on a 4G connection and on your battery, your iOS, your iPhone device can't drain your battery because it's downloading images all the time. So during the day, when your mobile phone is not fully charged, it will not do that. It will not download the images. If you are abroad, if you're on roaming, it will also not download the images because it will run you into costs. So that's why we see when you arrive at home, you connect to your home Wi-Fi, you plug it in the charger, the chance of false openers, so in the background downloading the open image, is higher than during the day.
So you, as a company, you just hope that your audience opens their mails during the day.
Yes. Yeah, it depends, of course, but that means, and it comes back to what we were talking earlier, what does an open mean? A click is true, and that's still true on Apple, on Apple Mail, but the open is not certainly a real open, but it does also mean the user is real, because it is configured on an Apple device. Somebody configured that mailbox on a device, so you know it is true. Because you can think about, hey, sunsetting, we are everybody is opening, so everybody will stay in the sunsetting segment for forever. But that's not a real bad thing because the users are real. They might not be engaging with you, but it is real. And that's a little bit something vague that still has to be developed because the entire industry is moving to this kind of systems. So maybe in a couple of years, we will see open rates about 70–80% across your entire
So it gets
audience.
irrelevant.
In the end, we're not there yet, huh?
Yeah.
But in the end, it will.
So it will be clicks that are important. And
Yes.
then once again, you come back to my expertise, of course. It means sending the right information to the right persons with the correct content so that they are triggered to click.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why we said from the beginning that email deliverability is so much more than just some technical switches that you say is set on or off.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have a visual here about Apple.
Yeah, this was just to show you the screen the users get when they installed iOS 15 and upgraded their Apple Mail app. They get the chance to subscribe to this Apple MPP thing, but of course, 95–96% of the people choose protect me. Nobody is saying don't protect me.
No. Also with Apple, there is a feature in place that you can have a fake email address that is governed by Apple and that is redirected to your own mailbox. Do you see a lot of instances?
Yeah, it's about that Apple Relay thing. We do see it, but it's very technical to implement that, and we don't believe it will hold in the future. The way they have
I have an Apple. I have done it for some, but it's quite not complex, but it takes some effort to do it.
Yes, but after the scene, so in the back end, the one who is sending the emails also has to do a lot of things. So we have to connect with the providers where you can do that and where you can configure those kind of email addresses to get the emails delivered. It's like a back-end whitelisting thing. It's very complex. And that's why I think it's not going to last. But yeah, who am I, of course, but yeah.
The experts.
We'll see.
Okay, before we go, we are getting closer to the end of this webinar, but before we go to the questions from the audience, what other things do we need to take into account? We talked about the technical things, we did basic housekeeping, we talked about content and segmenting and templates, whatever. What other things do we still need to do and take into account? We did everything okay. Everything went well. What can still go wrong?
They say that not changing your practices is a bad practice.
Okay.
So that means numbers you see in the past aren't necessarily true in the future. So you have to keep monitoring your open rates and delivery rates per ISP, because
it's like advertisements of banks that they say the results of the past are no guarantee for the future.
Yes, that's the same. Sometimes we have an issue, a sender has an issue and they reach out to us and then they claim, but we haven't done anything in years. And that's your problem, because the receiving side does change things. They change their spam filters. They change the way they calculate reputation, and that can be changed. So delivery can change, reputation can change, and deliverability can change.
But so what do our customers have to do to make sure that everything runs smoothly?
Keep monitoring your rates, and especially per ISP. I know that's sometimes hard because you are tempted to look at your overall numbers. And if that is still high, your open rate is high, your click rate is high, you are happy. But it can be that some ISP is suffering and you're losing conversion there. So try to look at open rates and delivery rates, click rates
for the most important ISPs.
For the most important, of course, indeed.
I remember some years ago, there were some issues with Hotmail that a lot of customers of ours got good send rates, except on Hotmail.
Yeah, but there can always be happening something, or you can suddenly get a huge increase in volume, avoid volume spikes. That's also an important one.
So if you send emails on the scale of 10,000 a day, do not send 100,000.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Because you understand, when we onboard a client, we do the warm-up process. But also when you are warmed up and you have a steady volume, when you change your volume, you also you need a little bit of a ramp up, a warm up to get to that new kind of volume, because it can be spammy behavior that the receivers are seeing if you suddenly spike your volume.
Perhaps also something that you need to monitor is if you have a spike and then subscribes.
All these rates, also complaint rate and subscribe rates, try to monitor that. There are some numbers to be found somewhere on the internet that even if you have a 0.1% unsubscribe rate, but you send 100,000 emails every week, in 2 years, that means a lot of unsubscribes, a lot of users you lost. So keep track on that. Even if it's low, try to get a pulse on why they are unsubscribing. So also on the unsubscribe page, ask for feedback. And then in a lot of cases, you will see it's about, I'm getting too much emails. Like you said, the example of your wife.
Or it doesn't interest me.
Yes, of course.
Content.
Yeah, people can change, of course.
Now we have some questions from the audience, and I need to cheat a little bit here. I have written them down. I need to use my glasses for that as well. So let's see, what do we have? Some questions from the audience. Let's see, where are we? The first question is, what are the top tools to improve deliverability?
Yeah, that's a good question, because at Selligent, the deliverability team uses a lot of internal tools and external services we purchase to look at spam traps and stuff like that. That's very hard for a sender, but there are things they can do. First of all, I would really suggest test, and just your own personal mailboxes are fine. If you have a Gmail account, send it to Gmail, see how it arrives, so if it renders correctly.
So as a marketer, you should have several mailboxes, basically, on Hotmail, Gmail, your private, your business email.
Yes, and I'm not saying that you need to test every campaign, but especially during the busy holiday campaigns like Black Friday, make sure upfront that you test every campaign, because during that specific time that you want to send out, you don't have the time to rectify stuff. Test upfront. Also, you have things like mailtester.com, where you can send a test email to, and it will give you a lot of bullet point views on what's wrong, how you can improve, what you can do to make it better. Then there are tools like glockapps.com. That's a website where you also can send some test mails to, and it's more like an inbox placement test, a seedless test. So you send to a seed, it will drop it in all kinds of mailboxes, in a Gmail one, a Hotmail one, and it will check, is it landing in the inbox, or is it in the spam folder, or is it missing? And this way you can check it. But that being said, we are not, from Selligent, and especially from the deliverability team, we are not so much a fan of those seedless inbox placement tests, because as we have discussed, most of the providers are using also engagement for that reputation calculation. And those seed lists are just dummy mailboxes that don't engage. So we see a lot of false positive results where clients or senders are coming to us, hey, we did an inbox test, a seed list test, and the results are not good, while they have an open rate of 50%, and there's no signal whatsoever they're landing in the spam folder.
And I think you also have the more advanced tools, such as a litmus and email on asset.
Yes, of course.
Where you see not only how the mail will look on this different devices, but they also do a spam check included.
That's more.
I think email on asset is included in Selligent Marketing Cloud.
Yeah,
as well.
it's integrated. It's in the account. It's integrated. I also think you can get maybe a free account where you can test a couple of campaigns a month if you as a sender really want to do some own testing on your own. But that's definitely true. Yes, they do a lot of good testing in there.
Okay, another question from the audience. By the way, audience, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We will cover them later. These are questions that we had beforehand, but we are more than happy to help you with other questions. Just send them. I will get them on my iPad. Another question from the audience with Apple MPP. and the coming Google change in July. What's the coming Google change in July?
Yeah, they are changing again their interface and the way they render their inboxes, and they're
Okay.
changing a lot of things.
A lot
all
of
the
things.
time.
Yeah. Have you figured out any standout practices to find that happy medium with segmentation? For example, not too harsh clickers only, not too broad to all subscribers in the last X months.
That's a very, very good question. And it brings me a little bit back to that smart sunsetting practice and its entire Apple story about the opens. So indeed, you will see on your reports that open rates are increasing. You have all these fake opens that are not real. So they will mess up your numbers and also your sunsetting practice, because there will be users in there that will be in there forever because they open all their
Fake
emails,
open, yes.
fake opens. But I would not worry too much about that. Those are real users. That being said, in the end, you should incorporate your clicks into your sunsetting practice. But the best way forward is to do this smart sunsetting thing, is to look at per ISP, per domain. Hey, Gmail, I'm doing fine. I can stretch it a little bit. I can take opens last year and only sunset clickers or users that don't click in the last 3 years. Maybe with Hotmail, do it a little bit tighter. With local ISPs, tweak it a little bit. That's why it's so important. Look at your metrics, and as long as you have good conversion, you can keep it up. You can stretch it a little bit, and if numbers are decreasing, you tighten it a little bit.
Okay. And another question that I had before this webinar is, I receive an email as spam. I mark it as it's not spam. However, the next mails from this contact or this company, this brand, are once again marked as spam. What goes wrong?
There's nothing going wrong. It's just that the reputation calculation in the back end of those receivers is not that instant. This is spam, every non-opener, every unsubscribe is feeded into that domain reputation, or let's say reputation calculation. And in the end, it will have an impact. But it could be that it for hours, it's not calculated in, and that one move out of the spam folder or move into the spam folder, that doesn't count. The safest way you can receive your emails is making sure the address is in your contact list, in your address book, because that's the final, in most cases, the final decision for a receiver to put the email in your inbox is, hey, is it a safe sender for this user? Because it's specific for you and me who is in your address book.
So not just drag and drop from junk to in.
Also, I would suggest also to feed
but
into
put
that
it also in the contact, and then
yes, should be good.
That would be good. Now, before we go to the questions of the day, I don't know if we have any yet. I heard something about an acronym BIMI. What's BIMI? Enlighten me on.
Yes, BIMI is actually being talked for a couple of years. Is that
what does it stand for? Let's start with that.
Brand indicator messaging something. What happens is that the last couple of years, the mailbox providers are trying to find a way for some emails to send out in your inbox. If you open on your mobile phone, your Gmail or your Apple Mail or whatever, you have a list of these emails with the subject, the sender, and the icon with the first letter of the sender. There are systems in place where you can replace that icon with a logo, with your own logo. There are providers in Germany and Poland where you can pay for the service, where you link your domain to a specific logo, and then they will show the logo in the inbox. But BIMI is a globally initiative where you trademark, protect your logo. You get a certificate by Global Trust or some certificate provider. You publish your logo or the URL of your logo into your DNS records, and when email is received by not by Hotmail, they don't do it, but by Yahoo and Gmail. Gmail will check, hey, do they have a BIMI logo? And then they will show the logo instead of the icon with the first letter. They will show your logo. I think I have a visual about this, showing the list of emails with some emails having the logo in place instead of the letter. We see, by the way, we see positive impact. Mainly if you are a retailer sending good volumes, and you're not doing the very best, you can have an uptick in open rates because of this.
Because once again, it's saying who you are.
Yes, true.
Okay, now, dear audience, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I'm calling a helpline here. Mathilde, do we have any questions from the audience? So let's hope that this means that we have done a good job, Jan, and that we have talked the ultimate, or we have given the ultimate webinar regarding email deliverability. I don't see anything coming in. No. So the final thing is to thank you as an audience to be here, to follow us. I hope it was very informative for you. I also wanted to thank you, of course, Jan, to take the time and to prepare together with me this webinar, because it took some time for us. I have also written a white paper regarding this subject that you can download from the iodigital.com website. Do that if you want to have more detail. And of course, if you have any questions remaining, do contact us. We are more than happy to help you cover technical or the more marketing related issues regarding email deliverability. Thank you very much and have a very, very nice afternoon.
Thank you.